We should point out Tesla shares now extending their drop, down 16%. Worst day for this stock going back to 2020.
Do you think you're living in a safe state? A place with steady jobs, stable housing, and a clear future? Then take a closer look. Does your state have a Tesla factory? Is there a SpaceX launch site nearby? If so, you're living on ground where, if Elon Musk falls, everything around could collapse like a domino effect. Because you're not just living in a state, you're living inside the supply chain of a tech dream. And if that dream shatters everything from your family's meals, rent payments to your children's future could be swept away in an instant. Tesla lost over $150 billion in just one day. What about SpaceX? If faith wavers there, the next fallout won't be just stock prices, but workers losing jobs, empty rental homes, and neighborhoods with no one left to pick up the trash. Are you sure your state can hold steady? Check the list below, because you might be living on a fault line without even realizing it. 1. Texas. If Tesla and SpaceX both spiral into bankruptcy, Texas will be the first state to feel the shock, not just in numbers, but in the loud closures of thousands of satellite businesses around the Giga Texas factory and the Boca Chica launch site. Austin was once called the city of the future, where technology met workers and real estate boomed with every batch of Model Ys rolling off the line. But imagine if the production lines halt, cash flow stops, and tens of thousands of skilled workers lose their jobs, what will be left then? The new neighborhoods built for young engineers and their families could become silent suburbs where for sale signs sprout faster than cacti in a drought. Cafes, gas stations, daycare centers that thrived on the workforce will have to reduce hours or even shut down. An entire ecosystem built around Tesla and SpaceX could unravel within just a few financial quarters. Starbase in Boca Chica, once dubbed the Cape Canaveral of the West, created over 20,000 direct and indirect jobs. But once launches are canceled and space contracts freeze, the fallout won't just be job losses, it will drain the region's development momentum. Brownsville, the poorest city in Texas, had just begun to rise thanks to SpaceX. Without that support, can it stand back up? The impact isn't only material, it's also the shaken faith of the people who once believed they lived in a state defined by innovation. Now they're starting to ask, if a tech icon can fall so fast, can the rest of the economy really be stable? And while Texas tries to reassure everyone that everything is under control in another state, once hailed as a tech capital before Musk's departure, smoldering consequences quietly wait to explode. 2. California. There are places that seem accustomed to crisis wildfires, droughts, soaring housing prices, but still stand firm because of their faith in technology and innovation. California is one such place. But if Tesla and SpaceX collapse together, that tower of trust could crumble right from the foundation. Fremont, home to Tesla's first car factory, is not just an industrial site, but an economic pillar for tens of thousands of middle-class families in the Bay Area. When the hum of electric motors falls silent, it's not only workers who lose their jobs. Engineers, component suppliers, maintenance staff, delivery drivers, all are pushed into anxious waiting. In Hawthorne, SpaceX was once a source of pride and a magnet attracting young people to study aerospace engineering and dream of setting foot on Mars. But if the company falters, collaborations with local engineering schools will lose. Funding, scholarships will be frozen, and California's youth, who once believed technology was the bridge out of an expensive life, will have to reconsider their dreams with growing skepticism. That's not to mention the Southern California real estate market, already inflated by waves of engineers, technicians, and investors connected to these two companies. Once cash flow stops, million-dollar apartments can turn into deadweight debts. Landlords who once thought renting to Tesla employees was a safe bet could now face months without tenants while still paying taxes and maintenance costs. It doesn't stop there. Rising unemployment could further strain the state's welfare system, already overwhelmed by high living costs. Imagine losing your job, your home, your hope, and still having to stand in line for assistance in a city where a cup of coffee can cost $7. California was once the main stage where Musk built his dream of a sustainable future. But if that dream shatters, the fallout won't just be lost assets, it will be the hopes of an entire generation swept away like dust in Silicon Valley's wind. And that's only the tip of the iceberg. In a land to the east where batteries are charged to power the future of electric cars, the shockwaves could reach all the way to every power line. 3. Nevada. There are lands once known only for casinos, deserts, and neon lights. But then one day, Tesla brought something different, a belief that Nevada could become the energy battery capital of America. And now if Tesla and SpaceX both fall, the very place that once transformed its fate through technology will be the first to pay the price of collapse. Reno, this seemingly small city, holds one of Tesla's greatest treasures, the Gigafactory. This is not just a battery production plant, but the lifeblood powering the entire ambition to greenify American industry. If this factory shuts down, the impact won't just be measured by lost jobs. It will strike directly at the new energy value chain, where every single battery is the lifeline of the entire electric vehicle market. When production stops, hundreds of raw material suppliers and component vendors in the area will lose contracts. Small businesses like battery transport companies, industrial waste processing facilities, and late-night diners will be sucked into the spiral of decline one after another. No speculation needed, there was once a temporary shutdown at the Gigafactory due to chip shortages, and within 2 weeks, nearly 200 indirect jobs were frozen. That was a clear warning. Moreover, the real estate market around the industrial zone, already heating up from the influx of technical workers, will face a sudden break. New neighborhoods springing up like mushrooms around Sparks will become empty concrete blocks abandoned by families forced to move away, leaving behind homes with unpaid debts and dreams just beginning to take shape. Nevada was once seen as proof of a post-recession transformation thanks to technology, but without Tesla, the driving engine of that transformation, the state risks returning to square one, where gambling and chance once again become the main sources of revenue. And if in Nevada, a giant battery manufacturing machine can lift the whole region up, and then drag it down, then on the other side of the country, a far more complex financial and technological ecosystem also stands on the edge of a cliff, where every tremor could shake the entire nation. 4. New York. New York, where life has never been cheap, and residents have to squeeze every dollar just to keep up with the increasingly suffocating cost of living, doesn't need a Tesla factory closure to feel the shock. Just a drop in Tesla's stock, a decline in investment income, and canceled tech contracts are enough to force many working families to tighten an already stretched belt even further. In suburban towns like Buffalo or Syracuse, where thousands work in logistics, customer service, and technical support departments, many of their contracts are indirectly linked to Tesla or SpaceX systems. Those seemingly stable jobs could be quietly cut back bit by bit without any public announcement. Every HR meeting might mean a few more employees put on temporary leave only for it to become permanent. New York's community colleges, which have been rolling out training programs in electrical engineering, robotics, and lithium batteries, are running low on scholarships and corporate training contracts. Losing investment from one of America's biggest tech icons dims the escape poverty through vocational education dreams of many young people. Even in Bronx neighborhoods where every penny spent is carefully calculated, residents face an annoyance worse than rising electric bills. The value of used electric cars they once hoped would be a safe and economical long-term investment is now plummeting. The Model 3 purchased on installment now holds less value than the remaining loan balance, and if parts and repair costs soar due to supply chain instability, owning an electric vehicle ceases to be a symbol of progress. For many, it becomes a financial trap. Meanwhile, community programs once supported by Elon Musk's philanthropic funds or science awards are now at risk of losing funding. Free STEM classes for children in poor areas, scholarships for minority students all hang in the balance. New York once prided itself on being the front line of the new technology era. But when one of the tech pillars trembles, it is the everyday people struggling in the marketplace who first feel the ground beneath their feet giving way. And down south, there's a state that once thrived on sunshine tourism and retirees, a place where a collapse in tech, though seeming distant, could quietly reshape the entire local market structure. 5. Florida. In Florida, people are used to storms coming from the Atlantic Ocean, but this year another kind of storm is quietly brewing, not on the weather map, but on the stock market and employment contracts, and even on every utility bill of the residents. The name Elon Musk has never been unfamiliar to this state. From Cape Canaveral to the Space Coast area, thousands of families live off every SpaceX rocket launch. Every second of the countdown is a heartbeat not only for the space industry, but also for the cafeteria, workers, janitors, equipment maintenance staff, and delivery drivers. But if SpaceX plummets, if launches are indefinitely postponed, hundreds of temporary labor contracts will silently be torn up. No announcements will be made on TV. People will only know when their time cards stop punching in. And Tesla don't think Florida is immune. In the newly developed neighborhoods around Tampa and Orlando, a series of apartments were sold with the promise of high-tech communities, electric vehicle-friendly, so what now charging stations lie dormant. Homeowners begin listing their apartments for sale because there are no longer any Tesla engineers renting. Real estate values, which once skyrocketed with every expansion announcement from Elon Musk, now fall like yellow leaves in a quiet storm season. No warnings. In Miami, once expected to become the Silicon Valley of the East, hundreds of startups inspired by Elon Musk have paused hiring, cut marketing budgets, and postponed fundraising plans. Investors hesitate. Founders grow weary. And employees, mostly young people who chose tech over stability, now wonder should they go back to waiting tables. And what about ordinary people? They don't need to understand market capitalization. They only see their retirement funds devalued small investments in clean energy, ETFs halved. Electric vehicle parts prices soar due to scarce components. Repair shops start refusing Tesla cars because replacement parts are hard to get. Every savings dream turns into an unexpected expense. Florida is the state of sun and relaxation. But when the shade of technology is pulled away, people are left with worries under the midday sun. And while the sun still shines in a state on the high plains, once viewing clean energy as a lifeline, the fear is beginning to quietly knock on every front door. 6. Colorado. Colorado once prided itself as the cradle of renewable energy, a state where the future was being built in every battery factory, electric vehicle module plant, and high-tech research center. But that pride now risks becoming a bitter memory if Tesla and SpaceX fall. People in cities like Pueblo, Boulder, and Aurora have grown accustomed to the rhythm of technology. Their children study mechatronics, believing in a future of electric vehicles and space exploration. Local universities receive millions of dollars in funding from energy innovation projects where Elon Musk was once a guiding icon. But now every email announcing suspension of funding and every postponed internship program leaves thousands of students struggling with the question, what will I do after graduation? In the suburbs of Denver, smart neighborhoods with solar-paneled walls and integrated Tesla charging systems were once seen as models of green, progressive living. Yet now families are anxious as batteries are no longer replaced. Promptly service companies pull out due to lack of parts, and warranties are indefinitely delayed. Green is no longer a choice, but a technical burden. What about transportation? Few know that Colorado is the largest clean energy equipment transit hub in the mountain region. Thousands of workers employed by logistics companies linked to Tesla are now facing reduced hours. From warehouses near the New Mexico border to the logistics center in Colorado Springs, fewer trucks run, fewer shifts are staffed. They are not fired immediately, but each passing week brings more hours cut with no clear return date. Even small towns that rely on supporting industries, manufacturing vehicle frames, insulation panels, and electronic components, are beginning to see a frightening slowdown. Tesla orders once accounted for 60 to 70% of their revenue, but are now canceled indefinitely. For them, it's no longer just an economic issue, it's a silent withdrawal of life support. Colorado once bet big on a tech-driven future. But if a pillar like Tesla collapses, their green dreams could be set back decades, leaving a void not only in budgets, but also in the faith of those who once devoted themselves wholeheartedly. And while the High Plains lose their direction in a northwestern state, once considered the nation's creative hub, underground, waves are also rising from the very heart of the tech world. 7. Washington. Tesla doesn't even need to have a large factory here. Just the halt of orders from factories in other states is enough to push the entire supporting supply chain into crisis. The component manufacturing workshops in the Yakima suburbs, which once operated 3 shifts a day, now only run a single shift. A small business in Spokane specializing in packaging for electric vehicle chargers had to shut down, leaving more than 30 workers, most of them single parents without any income. And the people in Everett who once lived off jobs in logistics services, parts transportation and warehousing for Tesla's supply chain now have to choose between paying the electric bill or buying medicine. They don't care about financial charts or stock indexes. All they know is that this month brings yet another unpaid bill. Public schools in counties like Franklin and Skagit are also starting to raise alarms, as local tax revenues plummet programs for free lunches. School buses and even contract teachers are affected. People are beginning to feel that the collapse doesn't come from the corporate offices upstairs, but from the very meals their children eat. Washington was once praised as America's gateway to the future. But when that future is tied to brands that are faltering, the people are left with a weary present and growing insecurity. And as the northern forests begin shedding their leaves of hope in the arid lands of the Southwest, a state once thriving on technology is struggling with fear. Collapse is coming too close, too fast. 8. Arizona. In Arizona, the problem isn't the bright billboards or the financial news. It lies in the emptiness of a truck with no destination, a worker returning home in clean clothes, because there's no shift to work. The streets around the Tesla factory in Phoenix, once bustling, are now gradually growing quiet. Not because people are on vacation, but because they've been forced to stop. Arizona is not a wealthy state. For many residents here, having a stable job is already a luxury. So when Tesla and SpaceX began cutting back orders, the first to be affected were delivery drivers, cleaning staff, cafeteria workers, and single mothers working night shifts in logistics warehouses. They don't get mentioned in economic reports, but they are the ones who feel the crisis most keenly. In towns like Casa Grande or Buckeye, which once welcomed thousands of young workers searching for jobs, cheap rental rooms now sit empty. Grocery stores have to close early due to lack of customers, and family-run auto repair shops no longer see regular visitors. And when the dollar stops circulating, community life begins to slide downhill from family stress. Domestic violence to children missing breakfast. More frighteningly, Arizona's already overburdened public hospital system now faces the threat of severe budget cuts due to decreased business tax revenue. Those who lose jobs lose health insurance but must wait 3 to 6 months for Medicaid approval. The result? People wait until their illnesses worsen before seeking emergency care, and this vicious cycle drags on with no way out. Arizona once dreamed of a green revolution when welcoming energy and battery factories, but now that revolution feels like a flickering flashlight in the desert night, promising light, but only enough to illuminate a short path. And while people haven't yet found their next direction, a state once proud as the industrial hub of the American Midwest is facing a similar fate. 9. Illinois. Label printing factories, metal fabrication shops, and packaging companies in the suburbs of Chicago used to be the lifeblood of the Tesla and SpaceX supply chains. But now, every printing machine, every forklift sits silent, as if mourning something slowly disappearing, the faith in an industrial future. In Rockford, workers who once took pride in their products traveling all across America are now signing up for unemployment benefits. In Peoria, small machine shop owners who lived off subcontracted contracts for logistics companies are forced to sell machinery, clear out warehouses, and hope customers will return, even though they know that hope is fading. Illinois isn't on Tesla's map like Texas or Nevada, but every financial shock in those states sends aftershocks here. People don't need financial reports to know what's happening. They see it in their emptying refrigerators, rising bills, and their children once dreaming of becoming tech engineers, now switching to elder care programs because it carries less risk. Schools in Springfield had to halt a STEM program due to lack of corporate funding. A vocational school in Bloomington is considering cutting classes as enrollment suddenly drops. In rural areas, residents are selling off land bit by bit to pay debts after the supply chain shutdown has swept away entire livelihoods. Illinois once served as the vital logistics link between manufacturing and transportation. But if Tesla and SpaceX collapse, that link is nothing more than a bridge leading nowhere, a broken bridge suspended between hope and reality. And as the logistics routes here begin to empty, a state once deeply tied to the auto industry is now starting to hear the growls of crisis. 10. Michigan. Nowhere understands the pain of losing the auto industry better than Michigan. Having once suffered collapse at the hands of traditional auto giants, the people here now face a familiar scenario. Assembly lines, halt orders, vanish, and workers return home with cold layoff notices. Over recent years, the presence of Tesla and SpaceX felt like a breath of fresh air for small cities across Michigan. Factories once declared clinically dead were suddenly revived by contracts supplying equipment components and electronic systems for electric vehicles and aerospace. But now everything seems to retreat overnight in a sudden, unforgiving winter. In Flint, once hailed as the industrial capital, dozens of small subcontractors have now announced indefinite suspensions. In Detroit, the silence around former battery system and circuit board manufacturing complexes speaks louder than any financial report. The people hoped the new industry wouldn't betray them like the old one did. But they were wrong. A 57-year-old worker in Lansing said, "I lost my job when GM shut down. Now I'm losing it again because Tesla stopped ordering." That statement is more than a complaint, it's the tragic repetition that Michigan's people have endured too many times. It's not just jobs disappearing. The whole local economy is dragged down. The coffee shop at the corner where workers used to stop every morning is cutting back hours. The pharmacy near the factory no longer sells painkillers for night shift workers. Local banks have tightened mortgage lending because who can be sure there will be a paycheck next month? At technical high schools in Ann Arbor, instructors teaching mechatronics worry students are losing motivation. They wonder what's the point of learning if the future collapses just like the past. Michigan doesn't need another lesson. They've learned too much and paid too high a price already. But now it seems they are forced to pay again for a promise of modernization that never fully arrived. And at the moment the conveyor belts stop turning, the hope once rekindled quietly fades into silence, leaving one unanswered question: who will dare to place their faith in the new industry anymore? When a tech icon like Tesla or SpaceX wavers, the aftershocks don't stop at the stock market floor. They reach your kitchen door, your utility bills, your mid-month prescriptions, and the restless nights caused by an uncertain future. You might not live in Texas, might not work in electric vehicles, might not understand financial jargon, but economic collapse has never been anyone's private problem. This video does not endorse division within the United States or encourage secession. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration analysis and sparking discussion based on current facts, emotions, and social trends. We respect the U.S. Constitution and all federal regulations. If you find this video useful, don't forget to subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss upcoming content where we reveal stories mainstream media often overlook. The analyses in this video are based on current data and independent perspectives, not intended as definitive predictions or to cause confusion. We hope this information helps the community reflect and act in a timely manner.